Hey friends, my name's Stevie Taylor. Welcome to the Gig Life Podcast. So thank you for tuning into this episode. If it's your first time here, I hope you dig it. There's plenty of previous episodes that you can go back and check out also if you like this one. Some great stories of some really cool people. Just hit the subscribe button and scroll back through and you'll definitely find something there that you like. If you're returning for more, well, you're awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You can leave a review via the Apple Podcast app or the Podbean app. You can also contact me via the socials on Facebook and Instagram. My handle is at the Gig Life Podcast. Or you can email me, thegiglifepodcast@gmail.com. And just tell me what you think of the show and maybe suggest some future guests if you can think of anybody. If you haven't already, please subscribe, share, tell your friends, or just keep on enjoying it. In the meantime, hope you enjoy this episode. Cheers. My guest today is Merenia Marin. From growing up in Whakatane, New Zealand, touring the country in bands, a record deal at 16, a shonky publishing deal that was designed to block her out of her own music rights for 13 years, moving to Australia and then hustling for gigs just to pay the rent. These days she's stepped back a bit from the live performing to focus her creative energy into songwriting, composing, with published tracks now all over the world. A really cool story with some hard lessons in there. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Merenia Marin. Cheers. I think we're rolling. Merenia, welcome to the Gig Life Podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Happy New Year and Merry Christmas and all that sort of stuff. And,
yeah, it's been good.
And it's your last day of holidays today, eh?
My last day of holidays,
yeah.
And then back to the grindstone tomorrow.
Back to the grind, yeah, bummer, eh? Did you get to play any gigs and stuff over the? Well, my situation. I mean, I used to gig quite heavily, and that was my main income for the first 25 years of my working life. Yep.
But about 7 years ago, I made a decision to go and work in the resettlement and refugee sector.
Ah, very good.
And I continue to work in that sector. However, and so because of that, it's kind of nice to have that regular payday, which is different setup than when you're gigging and you're chasing invoices and hustling and. Yeah, but it also, it's been a bit of an upskill situation.
Yep.
But I've continued to work on a number of musical projects, and so what I do now, instead of doing local Sydney gigs like I used to, I just sort of pick and choose and I'll make sure that I'm creatively invested in any project that I take on board now.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good.
That's good. That's awesome.
But so over this period, just before Christmas, there's a work called Barefoot Brothers that's in development. It's a theatre project.
Yep.
With some amazing people involved, Radical Sun, Declan Kelly, and a few of those other types.
Is this related to Barefoot Divas at all?
It is related. It's like they're developing a male version. I won't go into it too much because it's still in development.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. But maybe we can talk about the Barefoot Divas.
Yeah, I consulted a little. I did a session with them, consulting on the development of that work. I've been in the studio a bit, writing. That's cool. Finishing off projects and things, but. The last gig I did was in October, which was the opening of the Australian Women in Music Awards up in Brisbane, which was an amazing night. We had a great... And it was really an eye-opener to see the women that are working in the industry.
Yep.
On all levels, like writing for screen really successfully, and
Yep.
in the States, and there were some phenomenal female engineers. People we don't, they kind of go undetected.
Yep.
So it was a really amazing
Yep.
night.
Yeah, and what was that? How do I pronounce that project name?
The Australian Women in Music.
No. The project. Your band. The band.
Oh, that was with that was myself.
Yep.
Queen G.
Yep.
Who's an amazing hip hop artist and MC.
Yep.
And then we worked with Oyobi,
Yep.
which is Vincent Sebastian,
Yep.
Adam Ventura, and Daniel Pliner.
Yep.
We got them to integrate all the. We did a version of an old song of mine that I seem to always sing that and nothing else around town lately.
Yeah.
Meta, do you want to get up and sing Killer?
Yeah.
Okay. It's to the point where when we're going to a wedding, my son says, "What version of Killer are you singing at the wedding?" I'm like, "Can you just not?"
Yeah.
But it's a good track, and so we did that. It was the appropriate track, and it was requested by the producer of the show.
Cool.
So
yeah,
we went up and did it. We had a great time.
That's really good.
And the thing that's awesome is we only had to do one song, so we only had to hold it together.
For one song.
And then it was party time.
That's great. All right, let's roll right back to your early beginnings. From New Zealand.
Yep.
Born in Rotorua, is that right?
Rotorua, yeah.
Yep. And then you lived in Whakatane for a while, yeah?
Yeah, grew up in Whakatane.
Yep.
It's a bit of a... I mean, out of Whakatane, there's been Cora, have come, Macy, Rikas from Whakatane.
Yep.
Who else? I know I'm going to get a slap for getting... Whirimako Black is out of Whakatane area.
Yep.
You know. So yeah, at one point when we were on the Barefoot Divas tour, it was me, Macy, and Whirimako. We were all from Whakatane.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
So, yeah, it was quite funny. But I grew up there, and that area, we always had a lot of gigs. My dad was a musician and always had a band.
Yep.
And so I got chucked in the band young.
Yep.
And we played, like for a little kind of, at that time, real one-horse kind of small town, in the Eastern Bay of Plenty area. But it's weird in New Zealand how the different sounds come out of the different areas.
That's right, yeah.
I remember doing gigs around and noticing that as I started to move out of my local area when I was very young.
Right.
But in that Eastern Bay of Plenty area, there's kind of, in the local gigs that are available, through the late 70s, 80s, 90s, it was a very hard rock, but blues rock sound that came out of there.
Right.
There was like a lot of monstrous guitarists. Oh God, Dave Hiakita is another well-known New Zealand guitarist.
Yep.
Came out of that Waimana area.
Yep.
But yeah, you can hear that in the first Cora album. You can actually hear that really, you know, that when they rock it, it's really heavy. It's a heavy rock, and you can absolutely hear the that sound that comes out of that area.
Yeah.
But we all grew up together, and our dads were in the bands. Were always in bands together. Yep. And so we all used to get babysat together, but we've no babysitter sometimes. I just grew up in Whakatane. We started recording. I decided that I wanted to start writing music, and my dad believed me, and so he hired the local radio station after hours for $15 an hour, and let me go in the studio at about the age of 15 and start writing really stink songs that I thought were awesome. And telling everyone what to play and where to play it with not really much idea. But every weekend, right through high school, I was always gigging 3-4 nights a week. Yeah. And by the time that we got to fourth, fifth form, I was touring a lot and working, you know, regionally through New Zealand. Yep. Not big tours, mind you, just like in Dad's shocking Toyota van. Gotcha. All of us squashed up. Yep. Big van full of Māoris with a PA at the same time. Yep. Cruising around. Yep. And that was sort of the apprenticeship that went on and on. Yep. But eventually we went and recorded at Tandy Studio in Hamilton because we thought we were too flash for 1XX radio station at that point. And but we needed a proper studio. And these are the days when you recorded on tape. Yep. And then we did a record there that really in Tandy's, which is just out of Hamilton, and that was a real big learning curve for me because it was proper engineers and everything.
Yep.
And then my dad decided, he was a trade union delegate and he was working in Auckland. And so he decided while he was in Auckland to put a suit on and go around all the record companies and show them his daughter's Mad album, which wasn't very good at all. Like I probably laugh if I listen to it now. And,
yeah, I think everyone says that though about early stuff, and I bet you it's not that bad.
Oh, I don't know. No. Anyway.
No.
But then I managed to get a record deal. He managed to get in the front door of Pagan Records,
yep.
which is the largest independent out of New Zealand, and they had amazing bands on Pagan Records.
Yep.
So I had a couple of releases with Pagan and a couple of collaborations. I collaborated with the Straw People.
Yep.
And a few.
I was listening to that song last night.
Oh my God, shame. That
was that sound though. That was definitely that sound.
Well, that was what was in New Zealand at the time. Everyone was thinking they were a bit Massive Attack. Yeah. Which I've never really gotten over myself, but I've always had a vibe for that kind of production. But it was much more of an English sound, an English production sound that was coming out of New Zealand at that time.
Yep. And is this when you did When You Leave?
Yeah, we did When You Leave. That was after. That wasn't so Massive Attacky.
No. That was
like a ballad. Yeah, I did When You Leave.
Yep.
Pagan put out that first record, which was great.
Right.
And then Pagan at that time were distributed through Chrysalis, and Chrysalis got bought out with EMI. And EMI took over a lot of stuff in the early 90s. And so the dude from Australia, EMI Australia, the A&R guy, came across to New Zealand to see what was on the roster in the stable at Pagan, because they were quite diverse. I mean, they had that "What's the Time, Mr. Wolf." Yep. They had Mana, was it Mana? Yeah, I think. And they had the Nixons. They had the Greg Johnson set. They had a lot of some pretty cool stuff out of Dunedin. You know, that Dunedin sound. Yep. Anyway, and then they were interested. EMI Australia was interested in myself and the Watussi. The Watussi was like a country band.
Yep.
And so EMI then relocated me over to Sydney with my dad and the whole family.
Yeah, I was going to ask how you ended up.
Yeah, they relocated and I signed a 5-album deal at that time.
Right.
I never read it. Like, I had no idea what was in it. But I just thought, mad, I'm going to be like Madonna soon. Mad, I'm going to go America.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then I moved to Sydney. We got over here, we got housed, we started going in the studio at 301 and working on a few various projects, and they were sounding quite good. I was very happy with the sound. It was more of a Massive Attack type, kind of dark, but big beats kind of sound. And then the guy that signed me at the time, his name was Neil Bradbury, he left EMI. He was the head of A&R, and then he passed away, actually, after that. And they didn't replace anybody in the A&R position for a good, about a year. And then when they came in, like after a year, an A&R person generally will want to build their own relationships and develop their own talent.
Yep.
And so we got let go, we got dropped, and so did basically just about everyone. I think they really cleared the decks. But it was one of the most fortunate things that could ever have happened to me.
Right.
Because, I mean, no one signs a 5-album deal anymore. I heard of somebody being offered a 5-album deal recently, and I was just like, oh my God. Because when you actually think about it, 5 albums is 20 years of your life.
Yeah.
And as an artist, even if you have a really successful first album, in a small territory like Australia and New Zealand, you might have a really successful first album and the whole company's like buzzing about you and they really promote you. The second album might not be so hot, it might be someone new. And you've still got to actually sell your product to the company to promote you. In those days, it's all very different now.
Yep.
Like we're talking early 90s.
Yep.
So it can be really hard, and a lot of artists that signed those sort of old school deals, you just never get out of them. But fortunately, we didn't actually get to release anything with EMI.
Yeah, right.
And we were just about to. We'd actually filmed a video clip, and it was amazing. It was all on, and I thought, yoo-hoo! And then when they decided not to continue, because I had a minimum release clause in my contract, which meant they had to have released something before they could recoup anything.
Right.
So we didn't really
So would that have meant a single?
A single. If the single had gone out for even one day, I would have been in the hole to them for probably about, I think they've spent about 90 grand at that point.
Wow.
Because that was the days when record companies, it was just at the end of the era where you got into heaps of debt with your record company so that they would have to really work to make you break even. And that's, but that was a long time ago, and it's a completely different industry now.
Yeah.
So yeah, fortunately I was able to walk away. They retained all the recordings that we'd done, not a problem.
How'd you feel at the time though?
I didn't really understand what was going on the whole time. I was very young, bro, and very green.
Yep.
Very green. In the same process as same period of time when I signed with EMI, I also signed my publishing to a company called Lunacy Works Music. And I didn't even know what I was signing when I signed it. Right. I went to Auckland for a meeting with these fellas, flash fellas, I thought, and they gave me a cappuccino. I never had a cappuccino before. Mm. And then when they pulled out the papers and said, right, is everyone ready to sign? I guess this is a done deal. I just had no idea we were signing anything that day. And then I said, well, can I just get another one of those flash coffees? And they bought me one. I sculled it, and then I just signed it. And on that moment, I signed my publishing away for 13 years, almost 13 years. And in that time, I had music I'd written used in national TV commercials, in a movie that went in through 28 countries.
Was that Once
Warriors?
Yeah,
I had music on Once Were Warriors. Yep. I went through 28. I had a number of things. And you
got nothing for that?
Never got a cent. At some point, when I got at some point, when we got over here after a few years here, we went and engaged a lawyer and spent about $1,800 trying to recover that money.
Yep.
But I've actually recouped in a small way. I mean, not what the money that I probably owed, but I've actually used that story to speak to a lot of other young women and a lot of young aspiring artists, particularly artists that are marginalised, Aboriginal artists, Indigenous artists, and just said to them, this is the dumb shit that happens. Be aware.
Yeah, that's...
Be aware. So, and then I was in Sydney, and sort of had to hustle. And so I used to work a lot out of a studio that was in Surrey Hills in Cooper Lane called Skylab. Was there for quite a while. Mm-hmm. I'm sure a number of people listening probably know that studio. And he was a really good mate of mine, the guy that owned it, and used to give me heaps of session work. And because I just had to hustle then I had no deal, no nothing.
So that session work, was that on... It was on people's albums and jingles and
mainly people's projects and people's albums.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I worked on Errol Renard's one of his albums.
Yep.
It was a good learning curve because you got to work on all this different stuff and really hone your studio skills and get really quick. And at one point I produced a track for an artist that was in development for Festival and that was interesting.
Yep.
And then I just sort of gigged around a bit.
Yep.
Not too much, really, because eventually I started gigging a lot harder when I got a bit older.
Yep.
Because I was really young, and I had a kid. But I continually wrote music. I always wrote music. I used to... There was a church in Rose Bay, and I conned them into giving me the key because I had no piano to write on, no piano, nothing. So I would go over and use the church.
Oh, that's cool.
And I wrote quite a few songs there that I then sold on to other people eventually.
Yeah.
I worked with a guy called John Simmons, who's in a project called Critchley Simmons. He does more like electronica and stuff because I've always gravitated a bit towards that.
Yep.
What? And we had a project, more of a studio project. We didn't really play live a lot, but we had more of a studio project that called Eureka. And we did about 40 tracks, and we sold all of them to a company in New York called Love Cat Music.
So when you say
sell, a bit of a payday.
Yeah. So is it that are you selling the tracks outright? So
No.
So you still get some publishing?
Yeah, we get publishing. I'm still earning. You still earn off them, but you assign it. Yeah, you assign it.
Right. Okay. I'm curious how that all works.
And yeah, and then out of there, I worked with worked a lot in studios, different producers, working in different capacities in the studio.
Yep.
And then from there, I started working a lot with DJs. I did a lot of DJ gigs when I was gigging hard in Sydney.
Right.
I used to do, that was a lot of my bread and butter.
Yep.
And there was a whole scene, and it was really cool. Like, it was more creative.
It was a cool scene. Yeah.
It was cool because it was actual improvisation. Now a lot of the DJ gigs, not to throw shade on anyone, but it's become a lot more commercial.
Yeah,
it's not like that deep main room moment where everyone's mind's open and you've got someone improvising.
Exactly.
So yeah, I did a lot of those gigs, and I had Graham Mandroulis, who's quite a well-known DJ, older of the old school, Sydney old school. And I worked a lot with Stephen Allkins, Kate Munroe, and a few of those. Yep. And Graham used to help me a lot in my career and manage me. And he actually brokered a deal for me to be published by ABC, which was quite advantageous. And off the back of that, I've sold quite a few tracks placed different tracks, and had a lot of opportunity co-writing with different people. But I kind of kept it. Always being a bit of a hoary. that hoary gene doesn't go anywhere. It's, I'm a bit of a slow grower. I think I've probably still got my best music in me that I'm to write. I worked a lot. I started working in the Latin scene a lot.
Yep.
That's a funny story because I was really broke with my son and basically almost homeless and just needed gigs bad. And there's a well-known, I don't know, maybe you did you do a podcast with Paul Chenard?
No.
Okay, he's a great French-Canadian guy, but based here, and a great musician and a sax player. And he basically gave me a heap of gigs, which was very nice because I had no money, nothing. And he said to me, "Can you sing in Spanish?" And I thought, oh, it sounds a bit like Māori. Yeah, sweet. Yeah, no worries. Okay, I want to book you for New Year's Eve. Oh, man, where's the gig? Oh, it's at the Opera House, at the Opera Bar. I was like, oh, that'll probably be quite big. And so it gives me the repertoire to learn, and it's all in Spanish and Portuguese, most of it. And so, of course, being a hoary, I went to the beach and didn't really learn it until like 3 days before when I freaked out. The discipline of, you can be quite undisciplined and get by on your natural talent, but not for very long.
No, you get shown up real quick, eh?
Yeah, man. Yep. And so I learnt that as best I could. I managed to get through the gig. Everyone was happy, seemed happy, and then they asked me to join their band, which was called Matanza. And then I started really moving in and mixing a lot with, with other Latin bands and other Latin musicians, and really, really grew to love that genre, like just the harmonic universe and the rhythmic stuff. And I remember as a child always being really fascinated with a lot of that music, and you just didn't hear it in New Zealand. Like you'd hear it on a car commercial or something in the TV and you'd go, what was that? And then that was the end of that. But then I went, really studied it. And then I sort of started getting gigs singing in African, singing in French, singing in different languages.
5 languages, yeah?
Yeah, 5 or sometimes 7. Yeah, 7 languages. But I don't speak those languages.
Right, I got you.
But I'm very careful that I respect and I know the context and exactly what I'm singing, and in particular the social political context of songs before I sing them. Because can you imagine if you're somewhere and someone that doesn't speak Māori is singing a full Māori waiata, and just you get the shits, and it's other people's art form, and you have to be really respectful of that. So I've always been really respectful of that, and I think that's a good way to approach it, and then you learn more and people open up more. And yeah,
that's cool.
So there's heaps of stuff I'm probably leaving out, but you haven't got a 5-hour podcast, have you?
We'll try and find a way back to that stuff. Now, who have your musical influences been? Early date, like who are your sort of early singing influences?
I've always loved I've always gravitated obviously towards singers, but I've always been really into the holistic sound of everything. So I was really heavily influenced by people like Hendrix, Isaac Hayes. As a kid, grew up listening to a lot of that stuff, a lot of really obscure obscure stuff, a lot of stuff off the Stax label.
Yep.
Just heaps of black music.
Yeah.
As a child.
Yep.
And a lot of like rock and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then really heavily got into all the kind of sound that was coming out of England, the drum and bass stuff and the acid jazz stuff that was before that.
Yep.
And I think there's only two kinds of music, bro. It's like good music and stink music.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
But I spent a good decade being a full Latin head.
Yep.
And I still am. I really dig the Latin thing. And the way they organise music and just, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons I don't think I could go back to New Zealand. There's not enough Latino musicians there to play with, you know.
Right. I mean, the scene may have changed a bit.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's a few Brazilians there now, I noticed.
Right, okay. Barefoot Divas.
Yeah, that was an amazing project.
Yep.
That grew out of some money we got for a thing called Sing Out Sister. We did a show at the Brisbane Powerhouse with five or six of us, Indigenous women artists. It was like myself, Nairi, Emma Donovan, Macy wasn't in that one at that stage. There was a couple of other women. And then we actually went to Vanuatu and played at Fest Napuan, which is a big festival they have there. We were some of the first women to ever play on that stage because generally it was always men that played there.
That would have been a pretty special time, eh?
It was mad, but we didn't know. Like, this is another cautionary tale for young... I get to Vanuatu because, of course, being a Hori, I never read the emails or do anything. I get to Vanuatu and then I said to the guy that was looking after us, where do I send my invoice, bro? And he goes, oh, no, there's no payment for this gig. And I turned to Nairi, I said, sis, there's no money. We stuck here for 2 weeks with no money. She goes, oh, yeah, I thought about that. And anyway... And then the band that was from PNG, it was part of Tribes of Jubal band, they realised they weren't getting paid either and it all got a bit ugly. But not at the people organising the festival. We all had great respect for the tangata whenua and the people, but for the other fella that was doing the hustle in the middle, I'm sure he was getting paid from somewhere.
Right.
But it was an amazing 2 weeks in the islands, mixing it up with all the local people, meeting some of those artists that work out of there, Vanessa Kwai and her family and some of those other people. And then we actually went and did workshops on an island, Santiago, that's just off Vanuatu. And we went and did a whole lot of workshops with all these young girls, songwriting workshops and stuff. And it was amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Because they had never, usually the boys would dominate the learning environment all the time, and so we insisted that we just wanted to work with the girls. We were happy to work with the boys at another time, and they were amazing.
And the boys all good with that?
Yeah, well, they didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
And that was just me and Emma did that. We had a great time. Yeah, so then out of that came the Barefoot Divas, and that was very much Vicky Gordon. Vicky Gordon is a tireless worker for putting women's stories on the stage. And she's been in the scene for about 30 years. She's one of the only women ever elected to the board of ARIA. She's a bit of a powerhouse hustler and gets things done, pulls things over the line. She's basically the brains behind the Australian Women in Music Awards.
Right.
And she put Barefoot Divas together and brought in Alana Valentine, who is an award-winning playwright, and she developed the script. And we developed the show for Sydney Festival with Whirimaku Black, Macy Rika, Ursula Jovic, Emma Donovan, and me. Hang on, am I forgetting? And Nairi. And Nairi, yeah. And so we did the Sydney Festival at Carriage Works.
Yep.
It went really well. And then after that, Vic went off to New York and sold. There's some big thing they have in New York every year where all of the main festival bookers and venue bookers for major venues throughout America go to this trade fair, essentially.
Right.
And if you get invited to go, you go up and you sell your show.
So they're trading shows?
You present your show.
Yep.
You get 20 minutes on stage, that's it.
Right.
And that year, Vicky got to go to promote us in our show because she'd put together a package. And the other one was Bangara. Mm-hmm. And Sister got up there and hustled and came out of that with a tour. We did a North American, Canadian and Hawaiian tour.
Oh, man.
Off the back of that, and it was amazing.
What year was that?
Oh, God, I'm old now. I think 2014.
Oh, yeah?
And one of the things with the Barefoot Diva is that we instituted from the beginning is that wherever we go, we do outreach. We do the gig, but we do outreach and workshops, and we offer that to marginalised communities in that area.
That's so good.
Yeah, so when we went to the States, we went to Oakland in California, and which is a very depressed, like we think we got povo areas here. No.
Not even, yeah.
Well, at least, it's very hard to climb out of that. Mm-hmm. At least here. It's still difficult, but it's not that difficult. So we did workshops with young mothers aged 14 to 17 or 18 who had their kids in care, and they were finishing their high school, but in this alternative program, not at a high school. And a lot of undocumented young women, all black and Hispanic, and the most beautiful babies you ever seen. But we went and did workshops with them, and it was a beautiful experience. And we did the same thing in Hawaii, and we did the same thing in Canada with Indigenous mob in Canada. And it was great.
Sounds pretty special.
Yeah, it's special, and it's an opportunity also to develop workshops and interventions and things that, bring creativity to different communities.
Could you see you making the difference?
Yeah, well, we got letters back from the social workers that work with those girls to say that it had had a huge impact on them. And we didn't do anything flash. Like we literally went in there with a band. We had with us, the band at that time was Steve was on drums, my husband, Steve Marin. We had Adam Ventura on bass. We had Percy Robinson on guitar. He's an amazing guitarist that's in Melbourne. Daniel Pliner was on keys. I hope I get this right, because it's a few years ago. And we just took a band in and played tracks with them and spoke with them and just told them how precious they were and that we could see them, we recognised them, and and I think that environment and that is so hard, it's so tough, and it's just to have someone be a bit nice to you and have a band in the room was sort of enough just to give them a breather, man.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and we got them singing with us, and they actually learnt a Māori song.
Right.
Before we went, and when we went in to do the workshop, they greeted us with a Māori song. I think they sung Mehe Manurere.
Oh, man.
And we were like, whoa.
Do you hear anything of how they're doing now?
No, I'm still in contact with a couple of the young women on Facebook. We still chat and see each other, and they seem to be doing all right.
That's great.
Yeah. But I mean, now they're all living in Trump's America, and they're on the bottom, so,
Oh, man.
You can, thoughts and prayers,
So any future plans for the Barefoot Divas?
Not at this stage.
Yep.
At the moment, I think it's sort of pivoting towards this Barefoot, Barefoot, but that Barefoot Brothers thing is not my project. I was asked to consult, but that's something that they're developing. But it looked amazing the day that they got to work on it. It's quite exciting.
Yep. How much of your time these days are you putting into songwriting and composing? Quite a lot,
but you have to be really ninja about it. And just
what did you say, ninja?
Yeah, you have to be a ninja because, you got to... I mean, the system that we all live in, and with the state of rent in the city that we live in, everyone's got to make it pay all the time.
Yep.
And so you're time poor because you got to hustle and make a living. I'm fortunate in that what I do for a living aligns with my political and social values. And so I'm not really complaining, but it's still time consuming. So I ride in the car, in the shower, hanging out the washing, in the middle of the night, on the back steps. But what I've actually noticed is I actually get more done than when I was playing all the time.
Yeah.
Because you're so hungry, you're more hungry for it.
Gotcha.
Because it's, So I'm writing a lot.
Yeah, because you read a lot too, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always
no, that's
trying to expand the mind a little bit.
Yeah.
But I've been working for the last sort of 18 months with an MD called Andrew Warboys, who does amazing, does a lot of edgy kind of theatre and stuff like that. Puts on productions at the Hayes and tours. He was last year he was touring internationally with another artist, but works much more in the theatre world.
Right, so you're writing to that.
I started writing a theatre piece, but it became very clear that it's actually probably going to be an album first. So we're just sort of we just sort of finished the blueprint of that, and so start working on the album this year,
right?
In earnest and really, yeah.
Now, this just popped into my head then because my kids, they love The Greatest Showman. It's their favourite all-time show and favourite musical, and they listen to all the music. And is there more demand to write musicals and shows based on the sort of the fame that?
Oh, I think it was before that. Like that's just something that's filtered through, but people, there's like with the Hayes Theatre, there's been some phenomenal shows. Piloted there, and they'll try things and take a risk on things. Like the Heights that's about to go into the Opera House now, it was started in the Hayes Theatre. And and there is kind of I'm noticing, like you don't notice it as a gigger when you're gigging around and that kind of thing, but there is actually a thriving theatre scene in Australia. Right. I mean, I wouldn't say thriving, but you know, there's people, it supports a lot of people, and people are able to get shows up and running. I've consulted on a few shows, and so that was the initial plan, was to write this theatre piece, and it probably still will be a theatre piece eventually, but it's just prohibitively expensive to start from that point. So you're better just to get the tracks out.
Right.
But that's much more of it's a labour of love, I guess. But I've decided that I was never one to play a lot of commercial material. I would always go and do gigs and play my originals and just.
Yep. At the gigs?
At gigs. Yep. Like I find what I used to get away with is if you put a cover in every 3 or 4 songs or every couple of songs, to give them a point of reference in the set. Oh, this is the vibe. Something they can recognise. I'd get away with it. Like when we went to Macau with Veneno, we went and did contracts there, and we were there for like 6 months at a time, 3 months at a time. I don't know, we played all the Veneno originals, we played we do like a whole set of my originals in the middle of the gig. Yeah. Like I don't know if casino band, like playing in a casino, essentially, beautiful theatre, state of the art, but it's still a casino, like who gets away? Right. I can't believe we got away with that. Yeah. So this project is got more of a political focus to it. And I really think as artists, you get to a point where you get tired of writing "Hey Johnny, I love you" songs. And I think that as an artist, it's important to reflect your times, and we're in some interesting times. Yeah. So this project is very much in that vein. Right. The working title for that project is The Human Condition.
The Human Condition, yep.
Yeah, that's the working title for it at the moment. Yep.
Anything else on the horizon, music-wise?
This year I'm just focusing mainly on getting this record together. I'm hoping to get it together in the second quarter of 2019. Yep. And through my work in the refugee sector, and also working in I work a lot in disability entrepreneurship. I've got some really interesting podcasts and things like that I'm kind of producing and being involved in.
That's cool.
So, it's going to be an interesting creative year.
That's good.
But it's a lot more disciplined than it was 10 years ago. We've got a proper job now.
Yeah, you've grown up now.
Proper grown up now.
Yeah. Got
Rego in the car and everything. So, and I think that's, rather than go and gig around everywhere, because for singers, I think it's particularly for singers, if you're thinking of coming out with your own project and something like, if you're out everywhere gigging all the time and everyone sees you all the time, then you come out with your original stuff, it can be a hard thing to convince the local audience to listen to you. Whereas, if you can generate income in another way and quietly do your work in the background and then just come out when you're ready, I think is a better And then you save your voice. Your voice doesn't get damaged and tired, because a lot of us singers have had issues. I mean, I was gigging something 13, 14 gigs in a week. And, you know, I remember once doing 2 gigs at once, booked myself so hungers to get the money to pay the rent.
Right.
That I had a gig at Tatler's and simultaneously across the road a gig at Trademark. And I knew it, and I booked them both, and I sung one set at Tatler's, ran across the road, sung another set at Trademark, ran across the road to another set there, and I'd had a corporate earlier in the day. I don't think at that point the quality of anyone's performance is really there.
Right.
You're just sort of having a drink at that point to keep happy, and who knows what was going on the mic, you know. And so, for singers, gigging heavily locally can be, you know, can be a worry.
Yep.
Vocally.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an important point.
Yeah, and a lot of the gigs that I would rely on are all gone now too. Right. A lot of them, like 50 clubs closed. And I was unashamed. I enjoyed the club stuff as well, with a good DJ, like a creative DJ, someone like Kate Munroe, who does really interesting shit, like mixes in tracks of like Miriam Makeba and really interesting artists in with like really heavy beats. And it's like 2 o'clock in the morning in the main room and everyone's losing their mind, and it's really heavy and tribal, and it's a beautiful environment to sing in and to improvise in and bring the crowd together. But that sort of is become much more commercial now, and you have to really look for that, whereas that was kind of the norm. There were so many little venues and clubs and but now it's sort of, we've got our big building side of a city now.
Hey, isn't it like that? Yeah. Well, Merenia, that was fantastic chatting with you today.
I hope I haven't raved on.
No, not at all.
Edit it?
No, that's all good. The editing will probably be my dumb Greatest Showman question. After I asked that question, I went, "Fuck, what are you saying?"
Oh, it's got huge appeal though.
No, I think what I was trying to say, probably what I was meant to say, or what I was saying, I guess there seems to be more attention possibly on theatre now.
Mainstream,
because a show like that's maybe brought it to the
and Mary
to the front.
Poppins.
Oh yeah, true.
Mary Poppins. See, Disney and that. Well, if you look at all the old Disney movies, like all the kids' stuff they do, they basically all are like musical theatre, like even Frozen and stuff like that. Course, and they always have their big tunes, and it's just music theatre but a cartoon on the movies, you know.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And that formula has an appeal. And you don't always have to do Peace, Love and Rainbows and Mary Poppins kind of shows. You can do some really edgy and interesting theatre, and there's been a fair bit of that coming out of Sydney. Yeah, and we've got some really competent theatre musicians.
Right.
And just we've actually got really world-class musicians.
Yeah, I'm chasing them.
And we're very fortunate, and particularly in the Latin scene, we're a bit spoilt too. There's some phenomenal players. Yeah. And even and like people like Errol, you know, they're legit at what they do. They're legit on their art form. Yep.
Well, it keeps them playing.
Well, I remember him saying to me, you know, you might get when I was really young, him saying to me, you might get a break, and it might work out, and it might not work out. And if it doesn't work out, you still have your music in you, and you still have your talent, and it has to come through you. Yeah. And I was like listening, I was only young. I was like 19 in the studio just listening to the guru. Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing. I think I've always been able to recognise when there's a really good teacher in the room and to shut the mouth and listen for a minute.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Great. All right, thank you so much.
Okay.
Look forward to hopefully seeing you gigging sometime, and can't wait to hear your album.
Yeah, I think it's going to be about the album. Initially, there's a lot of pre-production and stuff to happen, and then it'll be after that. Yeah, I'm actually on this album is going to be collaborating with Queen G. Yep. It's going to be collaborating on quite a few tracks. Yep. She's really fun to perform with, and a formidable spoken word artist. And I think the other thing I noticed with her is not only the integrity of the lyric is really strong, and we're on the same page politically, but she's actually very musical.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you think she'd chat?
Oh, she'd love to chat.
Cool.
She'd tell you all about the old scene back in the day.
Yeah.
All that kind of scene.
Right.
Yeah, that she'd be more than happy to chat.
Great.
But yeah, there's some amazing people around.
There sure is. Awesome. Thanks, Merenia.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Nah, sweet as.
Thank you. I hope I didn't rave like an auntie.
All good. No, sweet as. Loved it. Yeah, all right.
Do a bit of an edit, bro.
No, only me. Only edit me out. No.
Oh.
No.
But it's probably out of sync now because we talked about different things.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah, no one gives a fuck, man.
All right. Catch you later.
You never see me shake my culo like an African girl, because I never do it right, but you can't feel my words. You never see me shake my culo like an African girl. No soy anima, but you can't feel my words. You will feel my words. You can't feel my words. This one for the workers and the people in migration. This one for my brothers take on the corporations. This one for the mothers and the daughters in the front line, trying to raise their babies while they're standing in the bread line. This one for the children on the streets of Palestine, occupied, dodging all their bullets and running for their lives. This one for the Nunga Marikuri Polynesians, because we still stand strong despite indoctrination, race relation, separation, sublimation, denigration, manipulation, victimization. This one gon' be killer, this one gon' be killer, this one coming at y'all, killer, no filler. Oh yeah. This one gon' be killer, it's gon' be killer, it's dedicated to all of my sisters. This one gon' be killer, it's gon' be killer. See, Ventura, all killer, no filler. Like Vicente Seba, all killer, no filler. See, Danielito, all killer, no filler. Just like Merenia, all killer, no filler. Now Queen G, all killer, no filler.
This one gonna bring a revolution. This one gonna bring a solution. This one for the children. Stop targeting teens, supposed to build them. Death in custody, children, refugee children, unarmed children, stolen children, still living in times, publicly publishing crimes. Laws designed, I stop right there. Those who dare to care get in silence. Another form of violence. It's time for alignment. Must realize this. Amongst the niceness, there is crisis. Bodies paying prices. We are all responsible. This is not unsolvable. Love, I got your back, love. You got my back, love. Vibing with my tribe in line. Flow with the signs to be the leaders, the peace believers. Must get justice. This one gon' be killer, Queen and Merenia. Yeah, so this one gon' be killer. This one for the fearless, this one for the realists, this one for the healers. Hear us roar for the ones who came before. This one for the first of many firsts. Yes, we're breaking the curse, diverse and well versed. This one for the articulate, articulate, formulate, blossoming beautiful. Put it in the musical, decolonize its failure, breaking barriers in all areas. Yeah.
This one gonna be killer, it's gonna be killer, it's coming at y'all, killer, no filler. one gonna be killer. It's gonna be killer. It's dedicated to all of my sisters. Whoa. This one gonna be killer. It's gonna be killer. It's coming at y'all, killer, no filler.